electrician on staff who would be doing all the hookup. But our students, just like in night construction, would be running wiring to the location, but again, not time the electric. We'll have our on-site.
Yeah, I have a lot of no concerns. Scary stating the material was construction. If there's no other questions or concerns, I'll accept the motion, please.
It reviews the evaluation of the site plans submitted by Andrew Crowley, Oak Creek Franklin Giant School District for the property at 9230 South Shepherd Avenue with the following condition. And all relevant proposed requirements remain in effect. Two, that all detailed replacement plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit application.
And before there's a second, I need to make a slight correction. There's three in building plan. There was a addition of building plan. So the motion was amended to incorporate building plans as well.
Laura, aye.
Sleeper and I.
Chandler, aye. And I.
Brings us to 7B, another plan review. Review the site, building, and related plans submitted by Andrew Coney, Oak Creek, Franklin.
For everybody, this particular site is actually on two different parcels, so that's why there was an additional parcel that was listed in the staff report. It appears that the building will actually be going on the remnant parcel, so that would be 8461R South 13th Street, still the same site. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear what we're looking at. But again, same structure, located on the southwest corner of the drive and parking area for West Middle School. Meets all the location setbacks. It is for the storage of athletic equipment, and it's designed to look exactly like the previous one that we reviewed. It's just a close-up of where that will be located for everybody who's familiar with the site. You probably won't even notice that it's there unless you're on the site itself. So these are the proposed footprints and elevations, just a little bit of an orientation differentiation from what we looked at for East Middle School. And again, the suggested motion on the screen should be approval for site and building plans. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the only addition I would add to that is the back of West was regraded. It's been reseeded and will be a usable field. If you have been there previously, it was kind of undulated, not really usable for anything. So part of our referendum projects had some leftover dollars, so that was regraded. It will be used for West Middle School for PE, but also for youth programs and recreational soccer, whatever events they're putting out there. So the ability to put something on site for them to store their materials is very helpful to us instead of trucking them around and trying to figure out where they're going to go or where they're going to be stored.
No questions.
No questions.
No questions. Yep, it'll be locked. Pretty standard. It's a typical roll-up garage door, so it'll be locked from the interior. And then use of the maintenance door you'll see located in the upper left on that kind of just drawing on the left-hand side. So it'll be locked, secured as best as any building can be. We will not be putting light in there. At this point, we haven't thought of that. It is located relatively still close to the building, so there'll be exterior lights from West Middle School that will still shed light on both the roll-up door and close to the site.
Ladanya moves that the plan commission approves the site plan submitted by Andrew Cromie, Oak Creek Franklin Schools Joint School District for the property at 340 East Putes with the following conditions.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Oh, I'm not done.
Yes. And please include site and building plans in your motion. Thank you. Should be on the
Okay, I
screen.
got it. I'll start over. Ladanya moves that the plan commission approves the site plan submitted by Andrew Cromie, Oak Creek Franklin School District for the property at 8401, I'm sorry, site and
Building.
building plans amended for the property at 8401 and 8461 South 13th Street with the following conditions. That all relevant code requirements remain in effect. That all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Hooper seconds.
Ladanya.
Sleeper, aye.
Chandler, I.
Item 7C. Submitted by Andrew Cromie. On the Oak Creek High School property, 340 East Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only difference between this particular accessory building and the ones that we just previously reviewed is the size, and there is also the option to incorporate a shade structure on the south side of it. So it's an 18 by 10 single-story accessory building. It will actually be replacing something that is currently existing in that location. You'll see it, it's in between the football field and track and the tennis courts. It will be used for the tennis courts, I believe, for the storage of athletic equipment there. Same materials and just slightly smaller footprint. Again, it's the same LP smart side that we were talking about previously, so that will require 3/4 majority approval by the plan commission. And this is what the proposed shade structure would look like. No concerns from staff regarding the use of the metal poles with a shade fabric. This is similar to something that we have actually over at Lake Vista, albeit on a smaller scale, but it does meet all the setback requirements. I should note that in the report, it does say that there's no additional access. The existing access from Groveland would be used for this structure if needed. And as with the previous storage buildings that were reviewed, no additional landscaping is required due to the location. So there is a suggested motion for approval on the screen, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'll just add that the storage that we currently have is a bit small. Our tennis coach and the additional users of that are still showing some equipment back and forth. To provide us the opportunity to have it stored on site in closer proximity and use to the teams that we use.
No question.
No questions.
I do have a question in regards to the size. So are there other storage areas on site for the other sports, and this is only for tennis?
There is an approximate 10 by 10 shed there, so that will be removed and this will take the place of that. We've coordinated with our athletic director to ensure everybody involved has had their voice and participation to ensure the size. For size is what is needed.
Thank you.
I'll go since I already. Ladanya moves that the plan commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Andrew Cromie, Oak Creek Franklin School District for the property at 340 East Putes Road with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Two, that all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Seconds.
Roll call.
Lonnie, aye.
Seaver, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
And item 7G, a rezone plan unit development. Your request has been as street development. Edison and Creek rezone do and establish a traditional neighborhood development plan on portions of the properties at 4001 East Lake Vista Parkway, 9300 South Fifth Avenue, 4200 East Lake Boulevard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is part of the Lakeshore Commons development that we had previously discussed. There was a presentation at the end of last year in December before the Plan Commission to introduce you to the project. This is an exciting opportunity for the city of Oak Creek, and we're very pleased to be development partners with the Berkey Trust, who is not represented tonight, and also F Street Development Group and Rinka as part of this development. Currently, there are multiple zonings for these properties. This is for portions of the properties. Unfortunately, our maps are not quite up to date yet with the certified survey map and the change to exclude the park area. But this is for portions of the property that we will be discussing. The proposal is to rezone these portions of the properties to the traditional neighborhood development for the planned unit development. Plan commissioners may recall that this zoning district was new and was recently approved by the Common Council, as was a certified survey map for the properties, kind of dividing this for the future development. There will be additional reviews, so this is the first of many to be coming before the Plan Commission, including, but not limited to, subdivision and condo plats, master landscaping reviews, master lighting reviews, and of course, site building landscaping and other reviews specific to certain portions of the development itself. I'm going to try and keep my remarks a bit brief. We do have the development team here who will be presenting. Some of these images will be overlapping. So this is the concept development plan, and this is just a color rendering giving you a little bit better picture of what is presented for this evening. This is a multi-use, a mixed-use development. There are multiple types of housing options that will be presented for tonight. Amenities for this development are on the screen, and these are also going to be a little bit in flux, but most of the establishment has been for the walking trails themselves, some of the recreation areas, the clubhouse area specifically, and then a smattering of pocket parks, community areas, gardens, and dog parks and seating areas, so that it does provide all of those amenities within the development itself, as well as adjacent to Lake Vista Park. What is on the screen right now is giving you an overview of the different types of units that we're going to be seeing in this development. You will have traditional single family. These are going to be smaller units, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. And a villa concept. These are the kind of side-by-side duplexes or condo units that we've seen in the city as well. Also providing some different options that we don't really have many of in the city, including the 3-unit villa, which is basically side by side. And we have 2 different options for that. And we have a 6-unit townhouse, an 8-unit townhouse, and 9-unit townhouse. All of these options for your kind of single family for sale product that is in a different configuration than what we've seen in the city. It does fulfill that need that we've been seeing in the different housing areas that we've been studying over the years. And then we also have some rental product, and that will be in your traditional multi-story, multi-family residential development. That's in the center as well as along the southeast corner. Overall, we have about 717 units that are being proposed in all of these buildings. What's on the screen right now are the different single family options that will be presented for buyers. Scrolling through these a little bit quickly because again, we have some overlap with the developer's presentation. But these are the different options that are going to be presented for sale. These are the townhomes. You'll see that there is kind of that comprehensive design element that's throughout all of the architecture. The multifamily option, again, in multiple buildings, different option types, different bedroom availabilities. And of course, the clubhouse that will incorporate not just the building, the recreation area itself, but there will be an outdoor pool, in-ground pool, and as well as a playground area and ball courts. There may be some kind of programmed or unprogrammed field there as well. People who can play bocce ball or horseshoes or whatever you would want to do on kind of a green space. The concept materials and signage that are before you, these will be incorporated into the conditions and restrictions that will be the next stage of Plan Commission review. We are not recommending that it incorporates the vinyl siding, but that's just for your information this evening. The conditions and restrictions will be obviously a lot more detailed. And then, of course, we have the signage here. Any kind of deviations from code, from the traditional neighborhood development PUD requirements, or other portions of code would be detailed in those conditions and restrictions as well. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to the development team. And I will just say that there is a suggested motion for approval for the Plan Commission's consideration after that presentation.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Guzman with F Street Development Group. Address is 1134 North 9th Street, Milwaukee. Thank you so much for taking the time to allow us to present to you our PUD concept, which has been put before you for approval. I think just a high level summary, we've worked really closely with the City Development Department to create a set of guidelines that are going to create really high quality homes new to the market in Oak Creek and provide a really exciting residential development. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Katie Menakis with Drake.
Excuse me, hi everyone, Katie Menakis, right there, 756 North Milwaukee Street in Milwaukee. So this is a site plan similar to what you had seen on Carrie's presentation, just kind of highlighting all the different mix. Here's just an outline showing that, as Jessica said, we've been working closely, so there are no surprises with what we've been presenting, planning and use standards of the following building types. Again, a little bit of repetition here, but single family homes, multifamily villas, townhomes, and multifamily apartment buildings. Architectural design standards for single family homes and multifamily villas. Building material standards, amenity standards, and streetscape guidelines. So this again, examples of the single family and attached villa or multifamily villa options for 2 and 3 unit. We include elevations, plans, and options. We're coordinating with sales team right now. We're receiving a collection of reservations on these. They're currently on MLS. We are coordinating the materials and quality to make sure that we, of course, meet high expectations for high quality materials. The townhomes and multifamily apartments. In the upper right corner, we show the kind of repetition of a row house. Those are all 2-story or single ranch or raised ranch options. So we offer approximately 5 different types in the townhomes. And then the multifamily, we highlight the A9 block, which are the 2 multifamily buildings in the middle. And then we'll proceed to go to the next pair of 2 after we get to a certain point in construction for the first 2 and then follow up the last 2. So 6 multifamily buildings. Speaking of the materials, this is a combination slide, and like it just shows high quality examples of a lot of materials that we've used. We have good experience, longevity, high quality, long lasting, low maintenance. And this just shows the same amenity and signage package, showing that although the lots are reduced in size, it's amenity rich throughout the whole development. A lot of opportunity to connect through and to adjacent adjacent parks and multi-use paths in the area. And then the streetscapes have been closely coordinated as well. Pedestrian friendly, safe. We have sidewalks, we have bicycle areas designated both in and outside of the streets, and then, it's a great neighborhood feel throughout. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a question. In regards to the building material. So since these properties will be built on the site, are the materials of a different type that can deal with the high humidity, different impacts due to water?
They are located far enough that they're not going to be impacted. It's not like certain saltwater conditions that you worry about in other areas where there'd be corrosion. These are similar to other projects we've done in the area. Where same level of quality, but there's no special consideration for the environment and the adjacency to the lake.
Thank you.
Concerns I have are the road patterns, how narrow they are. I'm concerned about our fire trucks serving those buildings and getting around and access to those, because they're not quite the same size as a normal car or truck. And I see some major problems with the fire department in getting access to their facility in case of emergency.
We feel exactly the same as far as the concern, and we paid close attention and coordinated closely with the fire department and then team, make sure that all accommodations for public streets, private streets, alleys, which I know are relatively new to the community, and this development offers all the required access for all three phases of the project, and we plan to continue to work closely to make sure that temporary access is available through construction as areas are occupied.
Have you reviewed this with our fire department?
Yes.
The next question I'm concerned about is parking. It looks like there's a big problem with parking, especially with a multi-family. When you have 2 or 3 cars per unit, I see a major problem with parking. I see it's off to the south where you have a parking lot, but people walk that far to park their car. I'm a little concerned. I feel that's a little too congested. Tight.
Sure. So to kind of work towards least dense to most dense, just to make sure that I'm answering the question across the board, the single family have 2, 2.5, or 3 car garages per house for both the villas and the single family. The townhouse have either 2 garage spots or 2 surface spots behind. So there's guest spots. For the multifamily, again, we started with the center of the master plan, the 2 buildings right in the middle. Those are the most developed and defined. The 4 in the southwest corner, we're continuing to coordinate with the city. Since this, we've done an iteration that moves a lot of the parking in the surface into the first floor of the building to allow a larger amount of parking for to be covered inside. Ongoing coordination with that. But our intention is to provide market rate, expectations, high level of what anyone in the community would want to be in a multifamily residential situation.
Also, the delivery of trucks that are bringing stuff in, how we can be around and service your area. See some potential traffic problems with that type of service.
So we've coordinated closely to this point with the mail delivery kiosks. For the multifamily buildings, we have drop-off areas, designated movement areas. Again, it's more developed in the first pairing, but we plan to apply the same logic and the same level of quality and expectation for the number of units, make sure that it's not burdensome to the function of the building.
Katie, if I could add, each one of these roads that has a number on it, it says road 1, road 2, etc. Those have been designed in accordance with engineering requirements. So all of those are considered public streets with the exception of one. So those are going to be ones that the engineering department has helped in terms of the design. The alleyways, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, are all going to be at least 16 feet
With aprons on either side.
with aprons on either side. So, and there's also going to be on-street parking that is going to be providing some of the relief, if you will, for visitors. It's also going to be providing some of the required parking for, as we said, mailboxes. So those are going to be kind of striped areas where mail delivery trucks themselves and people who are going to be going to the kiosks would be parking in order to obtain their mail. As far as deliveries are concerned, those are actually going to be handled just as any other neighborhood delivery would happen. So there would likely be delivery trucks that would be parking momentarily on the on-street parking and then providing that walk-up service to those individual units. And in the multifamily residential, correct me if I'm wrong again, those are going to be handled just like any other apartment complex where the mail service would be interior to the building itself.
With response to the question about parking, oh, I'm sorry. Doug Seymour, Director of Community Development, City of Oak Creek, 8040 South 6th Street. With respect to the question regarding parking, for the single family, for the villas, I believe that, I mean, there is, as was mentioned earlier, the required parking, both enclosed in the attached garages, and there's additional street parking. Where we've had some concern, quite frankly, is in the multifamily buildings, and the two that are being developed in the first phase are the most kind of refined at this point. And they, fairness, do not meet our code requirement for parking based on number of bedrooms. That being said, we have been working with the development team to maximize parking where available and to maximize enclosed or structured parking within not only those two multifamily buildings, but the future multifamily buildings that are being proposed. And you'll see in the conditions and restrictions that you'll be reviewing at your next meeting that there is going to be some discussion about, well, how do we plan for contingencies should that parking need exceed that which we're showing in the plan. I believe that's at 1.4 spaces per unit. So there's, again, based on bedroom count, that's a little bit light. Based on comparable developments in the area, that's also a little bit light. So we're concerned about that. We're working through some issues with that, but just know that we're looking at ways to maximize the parking if need be. And to that point, nobody wants to see a huge parking lot that's not used. So we want to make sure that we get the parking right. Any other questions I can answer while I'm up here? I'm sorry. You don't want to circumvent your process.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, all the public streets are, that's not assigned to any individual owner or user. All public streets are public parking. Now, the lots, for example, and the apron spaces, those obviously will be assigned towards either multifamily renters or the occupants of the villas or the single family townhomes. But I mean, if it's a public street, it's parking. Oh. Sure, and we based on our experience, we know that that's going to happen, whether it's at Drexel Town Square or any number of multi-family developments in the city. I mean, we can only make sure that there's adequate parking so that we're not forcing people to park on the street. And certainly, if you park on the street, you're going to be subject to the parking requirements that are in place for the city, i.e., winter parking. It's not overnight; it's not to be allowed. So, I mean, you can't rely on the public parking to satisfy demand, but you can rely on it to supplement that. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Do you have question about population density of this. How does that compare to our city standards?
Well, certainly, and speak on behalf of staff, I mean, this is a much more dense development in terms of units per acre than we've seen anywhere else in the city, with the exception of possibly Drexel Town Square, and that's by design. Walkable communities, traditional neighborhoods typically do exhibit much higher densities, and that creates capacity for better, more walkable neighborhoods. This, again, the concept behind this is to have something that's a little bit less maintenance intensive for the owner. By the same token, you're sacrificing space on your unit or I'll call it a parcel at this point, although they'll be condominiums. You're sacrificing that space in favor of a much more amenity-rich environment surrounding you. That's kind of more common open space. But you're right. I mean, this is not going to be like a typical Oak Creek subdivision, because it's not a typical Oak Creek subdivision. This is a neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, the PUD and the traditional neighborhood development really allows for increased densities, again, to achieve some of those things that we're talking about with respect to community and walkability. So this will be fully in accordance with the traditional neighborhood development zoning that this commission recommended and the council adopted. And those specific standards will be in the PUD that you'll see in 2 weeks.
Commissioner Seifert, if you turn to the T&D PUD standards regarding minimum density per net acre and maximum density per net acre, that'll give you an idea of what the T&D PUD allowances are, and this is in conformance with those allowances. So permitted residential uses for single family detached, single family attached, and multifamily. Those minimums and maximums are met by this plan.
We actually written standards to get the.
We've written the standards such that they can be amenable to a development plan that everybody is hoping to achieve. And we did have some back and forth on those minimums and maximums to ensure that the development is something that everybody is comfortable with promoting. So it is specific to this development per se, but it was with significant staff input.
And it's specific to this development, but it was based on standards that have been at least promoted statewide by the Department of Administration with respect to traditional neighborhood developments and based on a model ordinance that was prepared and has been used across the state.
And with the exception of really the multifamily and maybe one other category, these are not very far off from what our current density standards are if they work for lot. The difference with this particular development is that it's condoized. So all the parcels that are involved are common ownership, but the densities are pretty much closer to what code is going to be required in the zoning code update, as well as current code with the one exception, possibly two, of the multifamily.
Yeah, are the streets, are they all going to be controlled by the city, the streets themselves maintaining and so forth, or is that by the association?
Actually, both. The public streets, which were identified, again, from that. The major streets will be dedicated to the city, maintained by the city. The alleyways and one of the private streets in the southeast corner of Melbourne, certainly the parking lots and things of that nature, those will all be private and maintained privately. The city will not be plowing alleys. The city will not be collecting garbage or recycling for this development. That's all private. The city will be taking on some maintenance responsibilities under an agreement with respect to some of the common open space areas and trails, as well as some of the regional stormwater.
Let's go down in standards.
We spell out in the PUD as well as there are separate infrastructure development agreements and finance development agreements that cover all of the responsibilities of all the parties involved with respect to this development.
Thank you.
Do we know the garages, you know, how big is, looks like, trying to find a rendering, it looks kind of like, there's a little bit of an apron before the alleyway.
But they're 4 feet on either. We did not include that in this presentation, but there's 4 feet on either side of the alley at all.
4 feet from the alley to the garage.
Correct.
Okay, because the one thing that concerns me, I don't know if anybody's ever lived where at the garage alley, snow plowing can be a nightmare. And I don't, like Doug said, it's all gonna be taken care of privately. However, I don't know if the city has worked with you on what the plan is to plow the snow, not just throw it off to the side when everyone's digging out their garages.
Yep, there's a diagram if you're able to pull it up, I can quickly find that. There's designated areas identified. We also have fences. Even though the fences are an optional upgrade in those situations, if there's a fence, it's pushed back off of the alley to allow for collection areas between the garage spaces. There are there's an opportunity for single family homes and villas to have fences on the alley side, rear fences. And if that's the case, they're not held right up against the alley to promote, you know, putting snow over your neighbor's fence. We have allocated areas between, if you zoom in the grids, we're in the upper left corner. That just shows that identifies the typical condition at single family homes.
I'm sorry, where did you think?
To the right a little bit. Here. So between the garages. So we have we have typical 2-car garages. We're limiting the per block, the addition of 2.5 and 3-car garages to allow space between them for those collection areas. So I know that represents a typical, but if you apply that to each in between each house, that would be the case.
Collection areas for snow. Is that what is my question?
Correct.
All right. So I just want to follow you. Collection areas for snow by plow or for when individuals are like I'm not seeing how plow would you have to kind of turn it.
That is the thought.
Okay. All right. That's it.
At this stage, the only buildings that are have basements are the 2 multifamily buildings that are more developed in the center of the site, and even those are half exposed based on the relatively extreme grading on the site. So on the north side, you have almost full basement exposed, and on the south side, they're completely concealed. So they look like 3 4-story buildings on the south. And the single families do not, due to the conditions of the soils on the lot, we're being very respectful and coordinated with the DNR to make sure that we're not altering the interim grading that's being done in the first phase of horizontal infrastructure construction. For the no single families, villas, clubhouse, townhouses, they're all slab on grade or they have crawl spaces. And then the multifamily, the big blue buildings in the center, those have partially exposed basements. For parking. Yep. And then the 4 multifamily buildings in the southwest corner, currently the way that we have them conceptually rendered have first floor parking, no basements.
So the apartment, will there be more
We're working through that, what that number is, but right now we have maximized interior or covered parking, and then there's surplus exterior surface parking. So if you look at, if you zoom in on the A9 block a little bit, you can see that there's a lot to the north of the north building or the northwest building right there. And then the access that gets you into the garage of the south building, we have the parking. Behind the townhouses also has a string of parking. So maximize interior and the surpluses surface.
Okay, this, I mean, we all know that. What's right. That part.
Sure.
So I think
These will be, every stall will be assigned. It's not a visitor parking or an employee parking. So they'd be straight similar to other multifamily projects we've done, like Proterra and Row on the site or Fortune Flair. They even if it's surface, this is your stall, and there will be protocol with management to make sure that that's enforced. Okay. Sure.
Know that. Whenever there's anything
Right.
we.
Right, and I know Proterra, we have similar concerns, so we have the large garage underneath and then a few wood frame buildings above. For this, this is more similar to Emerald Row, where you have the parking just follow the footprint of the buildings. It's really every project that we do, it's the balance between density, parking, and construction costs, and making sure that we can get a feasible project. Nothing, yes, they're not available for purchase as a reservation process. So we're gathering names and making sure that when the time comes, there's so much work to be done before houses are put on the site, all the roads and infrastructure need to be installed. Right. We just want to get ahead of it for phase one, make sure that there's interest on the street, make sure that we're showcasing the best sites. We're working with the team early to make sure that it's the most successful it can be. The rather large red X there. Yeah. Sure.
There's not much. I know.
There's a datum, despite if there's a fence or not, there's a datum for how we would attach to fences or how they would align to one another. Sorry?
I don't think we have that.
The diagram that we zoomed in on the upper left corner, that was actually at the alley. So if you look at the just north zone, We have the fronts of the houses on public streets.
Sorry, let me just get to it.
Perfect. So that top row of villas, they're pairs. It's a little hard to read on this diagram, I apologize. The north is just a sidewalk, and then between is that alley where that green box is. Thank you. So the alley is where the snow plows will collect, and then in between where road 2 is, that's a public street. So the snow plows will be public on the public streets and private on the private streets and alleys. This is located those green boxes between each of these pairs. You have, 70 boxes in this zone. That would be the area designated for snow collection. But off of the alleys, it's all private from the association. This is a very atypical project where most of the maintenance, all of the maintenance, correct me if I'm wrong, is done by the association. So the homeowner will not mow their lawn, they will not do their own snow. Everything is controlled and organized from the organization or the association. Correct. Correct. Absolutely. We've been working really closely with the civil engineer, making sure that the sites during construction don't affect negatively each other. Prior construction, we've looked at the making sure that everything is coordinated with the overall concept and that each phase also there's not a problem if you stop in between the phases, but they work throughout the process. We have tons of interest. There's a lot yet to coordinate as far as the upgrade packages, the costs associated with such. Right now, we're building the base scheme to make sure that you can get in with this price, and there's certain options with upgrades based on site location and exposure to the lake. So we're coordinating every single day, but there's tons of interest. There's definitely interest with the townhomes as well that are less developed. That's our next project, their next effort that we're going to put on the website. The website isn't even live yet, so it's still very premature. Thank you.
Gary, can you keep that up? So you said if you put those little green boxes between, what's there when it's not winter? Is that paved grass?
There's a base that has grass and a certain paved area between the two villas. The little boxes north of the green box are a patio, like a back patio. We have a slab on grade as the base, and then a raised wood deck is an option. That is going to be, because there are lots of backyards, we kind of have this internal courtyard that's the buildings kind of wrap around, so you have your private space. So it's hard to say because of the upgrade options that are going to be available, but we have, the base will be grass. No, absolutely.
That's going to add safety.
Correct. No storage.
Strictly because of the snow.
Partially also because of, we just want to control the access for emergency vehicles, making sure that no one can block that.
That's not negotiable change.
Absolutely. We're ready to do the kind of bylaws.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Another question. This question. Can you hear me? Okay. Quick question for you here. So this area today is known for multifamily, and we want to rezone it for a traditional neighborhood, which means a more dense area for a living space.
You're correct that there are multiple zonings for the properties, and it's portions of the properties that would be rezoned to the traditional neighborhood development PUD. That is a specific zoning district that allows for the multiple uses and the multiple types of residences that we're showing in this PUD specifically.
Okay, so I do have a question for the applicant. So can you provide more information on why the transition from multifamily to traditional neighborhood?
Well, let me just clarify. Portions of the properties are A1, RM1, and B4. So this is bringing it all under one unified zoning district that allows for the multiple residential types. So single family all the way up to multifamily, with the addition of potentially having some commercial space in the first floor of some of those multifamily buildings. So it is a PUD, it is mixed use, but it's mixed residential. It's changing portions from multifamily to this traditional neighborhood development.
So what I'm trying to understand is the transition to traditional neighborhood development, which is quite a bit more dense than most of the areas that we have here with mixed use. I'm just trying to understand the reasoning for the change specifically to traditional neighborhood development.
Well, the traditional neighborhood development zoning district allows us to have more than just multifamily as part of the options for the housing types. It also allows us to do some things that, while not necessarily commercially dense like Drexel Town Square is, it does allow for a denser neighborhood development that is mostly residential. But we don't have prior to establishing the traditional neighborhood development, which actually was in our code, it just didn't have the standards that we applied to it until recently. That allows us to have much more of this mix of unit type. We didn't have anything that would allow us to do this previously.
And I understand the mixed unit type. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of why it's so thin. But why is there a desire to have the multi-family or the different units for living space so dense?
I think part of it, and Katie, jump in whenever you feel fit. Part of it is trying to achieve the options that we're missing in the city. We're trying to get at the specific demographic that we feel is missing. As far as the denser and the smaller, I won't call them lots, but I'll call them, pads, shall we say. It's trying to get at more of the walkable neighborhood, kind of creating a walkable traditional neighborhood. It's a little bit, I won't say unique, but it's a little bit different than what we've seen in Oak Creek in recent years. So it's creating that unit mix that isn't just your traditional subdivision. It isn't just your side-by-sides. It isn't just multifamily. It allows for the different demographics. It allows for the different price points, that allows for people to come into this development and maybe start in the multifamily and move your way up. We don't have anywhere in the city that has the townhouse options that we're seeing here. We certainly don't have any side by side, the 3-unit villas that we are seeing here. So it allows us to go at what is kind of a hole in our current housing. And Katie, feel free to kind of comment on the design of this, but that's where we're coming from, I think. At least with the types of housing that's being provided here.
Into the density, both Doug and I alluded to earlier, is the reduced, for the more dense area, the reduced personal space. You have much more common areas, and it's a community, it's a development, but everyone has access to these common areas that will, the walkability, the street use, the amenities, all come for use.
My only concern, I hear what you're saying, that there are areas that are common. Yet it appears, and maybe I just need more information, there aren't a lot of those areas. It seems to be a lot of building, a lot of livable space. There is quite a bit of walking space and a road space, but the areas, the common areas seem to be a smaller number based on the density of people that will be there. And then you have the other piece where it's not only the people living there, you also have people that are coming there to be on the lake. So that's a lot of people in this area. That's just my concern. I just want to get a better understanding.
Sure, each of the dots on the screen is representative of a special area. So along this path, there's nodes of pocket parks, dog park. We have access to recreational areas, seating areas, areas with water collection and gardening. It's each one, it's a path that offers a smattering of so it's not just a path. We feel that the amenities in this project are so plentiful that they will sell the lot. You get access to the lake in a way that no other development has in the creek, and you also have this interconnected system of amenities throughout the site.
Thank you.
This is more for. Has the city thought about exploring options for more parking on the park? Just to mitigate, I agree with Dawn, people will find their ways out.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, certainly, and we're under no illusions, this will not solve the parking problem the 4th of July. Or very bad. I mean, we need to find a solution to that independent of this. Now, when we first set out to do this, and I think, had the discussion, we're not out to build a subdivision. We're out to build an. And that's why you've got kind of those integration concepts with respect to the open space. But having said that, we know that Lake Vista Park and Lakefront is very popular and will continue to be popular as we continue to make investments in that public realm there. And yes, and knowing that full well, and fully expecting that this will be very successful, we are looking at opportunities adjacent to this, primarily in the North Bluff area, across the kind of river being there, that serves as the access to the water utility pull-up station, or the water station there. And as those properties enter their kind of redevelopment phase, we're very cognizant of the need for additional parking there, not only events, but just to serve everything that happens there on a regular basis. So you're absolutely correct. We know that. We are working on that. And I think that certain of the environmental conditions on some of those properties lend themselves very well to additional parking, where maybe there are areas I probably wouldn't want to develop, some of the neighborhood concepts that we see here, but they might work great as a parking lot.
That's fine. Yeah, just as a resident, who most likely probably be living there, I'd still like to go down there when the city's thinking about me too. Yeah. And they've given me a place to park and bring my family. That's all.
I also have a question. All this development, what about the growth pattern that we have? Fifth Avenue, for example, right now is not the most quality street we have in the city. We're probably going to have to take a look at some of the growth patterns through and from the area.
Yeah, absolutely, Commissioner. In Lakeshore Commons is part of TID 13, which is a really large TID along the lakefront. That TID was established with not in mind, not for just, we're going to fund this development, we're going to fund that development. We are going to transform the lakefront neighborhoods into something that, obviously something that we haven't had over the last 50 years. We're going to open that up, make it accessible to the public, and that includes the neighborhoods, the existing neighborhoods that are out there. And we are fully prepared to be the project plan for TID 13 to make improvements to those areas outside of Lakeshore Commons, whether it be improvements to Fifth Avenue for walkability or for just for traffic purposes, or whether it again is some of those areas outside of this in Bender Park, or whether it's areas that are in the North Bluff area, additional parkland for the public use, or whether it's some additional infrastructure development that will open up additional areas along the lakefront for development commensurate with the type of division that we all have for that. So yeah, this isn't, we don't have blinders on. This is a very, very, very deliberate plan based on a lot of public input that's taken place over the last decade.
recently purchased that 46 acres.
Yep, we did.
I would have to take that into consideration. Road pattern and then construction.
Yeah, absolutely, and where you see, I call it the North Bluff, it's everything between Lakeshore Commons and Peter Cooper site, which you're right, the city is, if you're gonna purchase and sale here for the remainder of that parcel, we already own the property along the lakefront. We will take our time and be very deliberate about planning that area, much like we did with the South Bluff area, and we'll make sure that whatever develops there is consistent with the vision for the lakefront, and we'll, again, whether it's, we know we need additional parking, that might be part of it. Now, we've talked about, well, was there a need for maybe some new type of technology park there? That's, I don't know that that's the case, but I mean, those are types of things that we'll explore in more depth as we take a finer line towards how this area might be developed. That area, again, the North Bluff, I would say it's probably 10 years behind where Lake Vista Park or Lakeshore Commons is. And I think this process provides a really good metric and a path forward for how we approach developing that North Bluff area. We have the benefit of being a lot more patient.
Thank you.
This is more of a comment. Supplement with this is, through the development of the, we were outside of the where we ended our new construction, all the way to the road, dollar wise, size wise, capacity. So we, this last week that we had, provided, which were included in the, so we are, as part of this party, we've also been processing for events. The one thing that does create issues within those areas are stormwater, the environmental impact, community impact. We've looked at a number of options and provided those to the administrator. So, we are pushing aside our things about this and trying to find other funding mechanisms and different sources to be able to create these areas and provide what we are continuing to work with everyone. Thank you. Mission. Fully understand that there's some based on the response. There's a lot of it does add a sort of diversity of housing in Oak Creek. People that are looking for this type of development to move to the city. I understand parking is a challenge. I know if I got home late, I'm parking around the block. Sounds like there's more parking here than and obviously the parking lots around the park. A couple questions that did come up. So even the single family homes, traditional, no exterior modification by the correct.
The condo association will have strict architecture.
Sorry, I need your name and address.
I'm sorry, again.
Yeah.
Okay. Jessica Guzman, Ashby Development Group, 1134 North 9th Street in Milwaukee. The condo association will have an architectural review board, so that will kind of outline up to a point what exterior modifications are allowed to be made. As of now, we're not allowing, you know, there are a restricted number, you know, of paint options you can choose for your exterior and materials and things like that. You cannot add a flagpole or other things like that. So anything that you do to your home must go through the condo association and they'll have full control.
That cover, you know, patio and deck option.
Exactly.
As far as the
Sorry, Katie Manakis, Rinka 756 North Milwaukee Street in Milwaukee. The landscape, there's certain requirements identified in the traditional neighborhood development guidelines as well as the PUD. We have a minimum spacing of trees that we're working with, street safety trees, minimum parking screening, islands required for parking, trees and shading. It is definitely something that we want to make sure that we amplify and highlight the use and the walkability of the street. So yes, it's being considered, it's being coordinated. We have special nodes through the amenity spaces that we do special plantings.
I know a question that's going to be brought up. Ownership versus my question will be multi-family.
Right.
So that was one of the most common one way question. Okay, so Mark, right? So we should not. Yeah. The other question. If not,
Alderman Lohr, just want to make it clear in the conditions and restrictions if this moves forward, there's going to be something regarding phasing. You'll note in your plans that there are identifiers for different phases for the development. Just keep in mind that because most of this, about approximately 40% of the development is a kind of single family type development, this is going to be a phasing program that is probably lengthier than any phasing program we have seen in the city thus far, at least for a PUD consideration. It will be closer to what we see for a single family residential subdivision in terms of time and length of time that they're going to be allowed to construct this. Each phase will probably have some benchmarks like we've seen in other PUDs, but I just want the commission to understand that if you see a length of time and the conditions and restrictions for time of compliance that is multi-year for each phase, that is why this is going to be something that is a development that will be taking place like a single family subdivision. So the first phase is probably one of the largest phases actually in the whole development, but that includes quite a bit of the road infrastructure, includes the utilities and things like that. So you will see something like that. I just want to make sure that everybody is not shocked whenever they see that time frame.
there's no other questions or look for a motion on this item.
Lonnie moves that the plan commission recommends to the common council that portions of the properties at 4001 East Lake Vista Parkway, 9300 South Fifth Avenue, 4200 East Lake Vista Boulevard be rezoned to traditional neighborhood development plan unit development after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the commission's review at their next meeting, September 28th, 2020.
Roll call, sorry.
Hold on the eye.
Keeper, aye.
Karen Blair, aye.
Hold on, aye.
Rilla,
Laura, aye. Okay, announcements and adjournments.
Mitigating, creep on that too. Oh, exactly.
Okay, with that one. adjournment.
Rilla moves to adjourn at 7:22.
Keeper, seconds.
Roll call, starting with.
Keeper, aye.
Karen Blair, aye.
And,
Hold on, aye.
Rilla.
Laura, aye.
Hold on the eye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We didn't play, do you need a